Beloved, May 5th, 2018. I never gave titles to dreams or anything, but at this moment it came to my mind. When I meditated on this dream, I put it the facets because I saw various facets of humanity described in this dream. I was in a huge house with many rooms, and there were 4 ladies in it. One of them was a baby, a girl who was approximately 8 years old, a teenager, and a woman who could already give birth. I was shown the facet of each one in its development and how they were infested by the enemy of souls. I saw how the baby cried. This baby cried bitterly because she could not walk like the 8-year-old. And at that moment, I also saw how the 8-year-old girl fought to imitate the adolescent. And I saw how the adolescent envied the woman for being more autonomous and be able to give birth. There was a terrible rivalry in them, and they could hardly leave their rooms without showing their rivalry suits. Then at that moment, while looking there, I saw that that house was very large, but at this moment a tall man entered, who was walking around said house, and each one of the women there in their different facets struggled to call the attention to the man, but he locked himself in a room alone and said, "None is ready to be my beloved." At that moment I saw how all those women in their different facets got so angry that they planned to get him out, but I saw how that man remained immovable in his place. At that moment a 5th female entered. This was a young woman, and when she entered the living room of that house, she cried and said aloud, hitting her chest, "Miserable of me, miserable of me." She carried a book with her and began to read, and as she read it, her tears rolled down her cheeks, and she seemed to have no consolation. The positive qualities of this young woman were made known to me. She was tender as a baby. She was innocent as a child. She was thoughtful, as teenagers should be, and she was a young woman who yearned to know the truth in its entire purity. She kept reading the book, and the more she read, the more she cried, and her anguish grew. In those crucial moments of anguish, I saw how the tall man left his room and came to the room where this young woman was and asked her, "What are you reading?" Then she answered him, "I read the book of books and accuses me of evil, but I can't take it from me." To which the man replied, "Don't worry." He held out his hand and said, "Come with me." I saw how he took her room by room and showed her the qualities of the other women. The baby, he told her, was conceited and possessive, only wanting her own pleasure, to get away with what she wanted, and manipulating with her rampant crying. Then he took her to the girl's room and told her. She seemed friendly in order to attract attention and feel important, but when she couldn't, she was an enraged beast. Then he took her to the teenager's room and told her her coquetry was her weapon, and she used it to live as she pleased without restriction. Then he took her to the woman's room and told her the following. Her seduction was such that you could not even look at her for long. Seductive, destructive, and flattering power. Said the man, "There is no place for them in my kingdom." At that moment, the young woman fell on her knees to the floor and exclaimed, "Miserable of me, miserable of me." But at that moment, the gentleman picked her up and led her back into the room and said, "3 things, scrutinize, internalize, and live according to it." At that moment, the gentleman withdrew and went to a corner of the room. There was a trash can. I saw him bend over, and from there he took out a book and cleaned it from the external garbage and handed it to the young woman in the room. He said, Miserable of the man who thinks he is taking his right path, but his end is the way of death, because without prophecy, the people goes uncontrolled. I saw the book. It was a great controversy, and he opened it to page 572, where chapter 33 is the snares of Satan. Then he said, search and put it into practice, and you will obtain the crown of life. Then this man withdrew and went to a disorganized bookcase that was in a corner of that huge room, and from there he took out a book and brought it to the young woman, who could not stop reading amazingly the title of that chapter. He said, do you want to live in a heavenly atmosphere? There, everything is a song of joy and praise for the eternal wonders that surround them. Then the young woman took the book, opened it, and he pointed to a page, and my eyes slipped to said page, and when I looked, he was pointing to hymn number 92. No one can ever separate us. He sang with her. This man had a voice, beloved, so sublime, so deep. In those moments of deep inspiration, the room was filled with sublime angels, all forming a harmonious heavenly song. Beloved, this was wonderful, to see that angelic host that rejoiced with said hymn. So when finished this wonderful hymn, when they all began to sing, that was so precious. There were so many voices, but all in such perfect harmony. When they began to sing, that was tremendous, beloved brothers. But when they finished, they all disappeared, and only the man and the young woman remained. Then there this gentleman began to give ordinances and said, read the Bible and the spirit of prophecy. Sing praises from the hymnal that you already know is correct. She asked, which is? And he said, the old hymnal. He also said, work hard in the fields without murmuring. He told her, pray 7 times a day on your knees. Fast frequently. Observe my Saturdays each day more. Be more jealous of my Saturdays. Study the sanctuary. He also told her, do not live thinking about the future, because yours is the now. Do good to all, even those who abuse you. Love your God above all else, and treat your neighbor as you wish to be treated. Then in those moments, beloved, he paused and tenderly began to speak and ask her a question. Who saves? He himself answered, am I not the one who died on the cross? Beloved brothers, then he showed her his hands, his pierced hands, and his holes in his feet. At that moment, I fell before that scene, because a radiant light flashed through his hands and feet, and my knees left me. And I saw how the young woman also fell at his feet and worshipped him. He picked her up and told her, your mission is not to save anyone, and no one will be able to save you. Just be a true herald, and your life will serve to attract others to the path of salvation. He took the Bible and opened it and read a text to her. There at that moment I looked. It was Psalms chapter 6. Then my companion told me, let's go. We left, and at that moment I was elevated on top of the globe. My sight sharpened as a telescope, and I could see that that young woman represented what was happening simultaneously around the world. My companion told me, and you will know the truth, and it will set you free. At that moment, beloved, I woke up. I woke up with the wonderful certainty, beloved brothers, that if we follow the instructions of our God to the letter, no soul will perish. So, beloved, we do not have the luxury of not listening to the instructions, the ordinances of our God, so that we can be saved. May the Lord bless you all.